All right, and the stream ready to go. I think we're all good here. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me in Astrology in the News. And today is March 3rd. Let's get this stuff ready to go. Okay, today is March 3rd, 2018. And of course, whoopsie doodle. I gotta figure that out. But anyway, March 3rd, 2018. And of course, I like to start everything out with yogic wisdom of the day, and this was brought to us by the great Ramakrishna, guru of Swami Vivekananda, one of the best, I think, probably one of the greatest modern yogis of the 20th century. Ramakrishna was actually 19th century. But anyway, knowledge leads to unity, but ignorance leads to diversity. Just ask the casting director of The Last Jedi. Anyway, so I caught this little story right here, this little nugget. Wyoming QB Josh Allen can throw 90 yards, man. This brings me back to one other particular quarterback who I was a big fan of. Of course, so this guy could be like Brett Favre, but of course Brett Favre mostly threw the other team. Because if you're not familiar with Brett's work, I think he still has the leading record of interceptions for a QB. So try. I guess you're going to shoot a couple of gutter balls. But anyway, let's take a look at this kid's chart. So he was 21, born in California. Don't have an exact birth time for him, so the ascendant doesn't count. However, his moon and Venus are in the sign of Aries, or I'm sorry, Gemini. So we're going to take Gemini here as the first house. Interesting thing to note is that people that are successful in sports generally have their Mars in either Aries or Leo. Okay, and he has his Mars in the sign of Aries, which is very strong. And it's also conjunct a retrograde Mercury. He's actually got a couple of prominent retrograde planets in his birth chart. Not just Mercury, but Venus is also retrograde in the first house. That can be very difficult for relationships. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this guy's career because he definitely has the physical talent. Now, the other thing, too, is his moon is conjunct Castor. This guy's a natural poet. So if you're not familiar with the Gemini twins, the stars are Castor and Pollux. And so Pollux is more of, like I said in the past streams, it's like a fighting star. These are the people that really like to get down and dirty, and it actually can represent physical fights. Castor is more of the kind of like the poetic, the writer star. So this guy definitely has writing and articulate poetic ability. So I think there's a lot of Romeo in this guy, but he probably doesn't want to express it. Let's see, also looking at his chart, Jupiter's retrograde on the seventh house in the sign of Sagittarius. So he's got 1, 2, 3 retrograde planets. Actually, 4 if you count Uranus. So yeah, this guy's really had a pretty difficult life. He's probably a self-starter. People that have retrograde planets, what it does is it takes the energy and it flips it inward. Now with Mercury in the sign of Aries, he probably doesn't communicate fairly effectively, and when he does, it comes out in bursts. So we'll have to see how this guy handles the media too. Now, the good thing about having a natal retrograde Mercury is when Mercury goes retrograde, he does awesome. So keep that in mind. Jupiter retrograde in the seventh house usually has unconventional ideas. I guess if he doesn't go straight into the NFL, he could actually go on to get his master's degree well. And then, of course, Saturn's pretty well placed in the 10th house, but it's in the sign of, well, actually being in the sign of Pisces isn't too bad because Saturn and Jupiter aren't enemies, but Saturn being in the 10th house is somebody that works very hard. And when it's conjunct the south node of the moon, wherever the south node of the moon is in your chart, you tend to throw all your energy into that. So taking a look at his dashas in 2024, that's when he hits his Mercury dasha. That's conjunct Mars. It's in the 11th house and also rules his yeah, this is when he's really going to take off. So I think this kid is going to become a star, but he's going to be in his prime when he hits 28. So keep an eye on him, okay? He may have some difficulty and he might be a bench warmer for a little while, but when this guy's going to break out, I think he will have Brett Favre-like talent. So hey, good for him. Next, Jimmy Kimmel is going to host the Oscars. Oh boy, I'm so excited for this. Well, honestly, you know, if I'm going to watch another win big, I'm going to watch this guy. because Guy's Grocery Games is going to be on tomorrow too. So hey, I think I'm going to be watching him instead of Jimmy Kimmel because, quite frankly, I don't give a shit about the Oscars. It's just all a bunch of circle jerkery and people saying, "Hey, look how cool you are," and all those people in Hollywood that I think they're so much better than us. So hey, we'll watch Guy Fieri. He makes so awesome the food. Anyway, Kimmel's chart. Don't have a birth time for him either. So when I take a look at his chart, of course, we're going to be using the moon as the ascendant. So the moon is the ascendant in the sign of Pisces, conjunct a retrograde Saturn. This is actually very interesting because there's going to be a lot of planets moving their way into the sign of Pisces in the next couple of months. So watch Jimmy Kimmel kind of gush it out. He's going to be very vocal about his beliefs because he also has Mars in the sign of Sagittarius. One day that we really want to keep an eye on Jimmy Kimmel is going to be the 31st of Mars, or I'm sorry, March. Mars. I think Mars is actually named after March. Not quite sure. So hey, let's get all Roman and shit. Mars, being in the sign of Sagittarius, is going to be conjunct Saturn, and then also too in the sign of Pisces, a retrograde Mercury is going to be conjunct a full moon. Okay, and then that full moon also too, if you look down here, it's going to be conjunct as Venus. That's going to be a very interesting day for Jimmy Kimmel because of all these planetary placements. Other than that, he's got a fairly average chart. I don't know where his ascendant is. If anybody knows the time that he was born, that would be very good to know. It's really interesting too with his moon going into the moon dasha, being in the sign of Pisces. This guy is really going to be really like gushing out his feelings and stuff like that. And so, yeah, have fun with that, Jimmy. Next, Elton John yells at his fans. He got angry. Some fans came up on stage and, he had them dancing around. And this is probably his first of his 3 farewell tours. And of course, he got mad. And so would I. If I heard Benny and the Jets one more time, this song is freaking awful. I want it to go away. So once, Benny, I mean, it's bad, terrible. But we do have a birth time for Mr. Sir Elton John, who was knighted. So his ascendant in Jupiter and the south node of the moon are all in the sign of Scorpio. This guy is fairly intense, and I think he's found a good outlet for his emotions, obviously, in his music. But the interesting thing about his chart is I'm trying to see if there's anything that would really denote a musician. And actually, where you see it is in the sign of Taurus. So music and stuff related to the arts is ruled by Venus, and Venus rules the sign of, let's see, it rules Taurus here where his north node is, and then also rules the sign of Libra. So the north node here being in the sign of Taurus shows somebody that had a desire to go into music. It actually wasn't something that came as a talent. Where you really see talent is from the 5th house here, and he has his son there. So really for him, talent came into, I think really it comes in the Piscean ego expression, which is this deep connection with the divine. Let's see. Venus is also in Sunday, which is not very good. So Sunday, if you're not familiar with Sunday, it's actually when a planet is 1 degree, so it's at either 29 or 1 degree of the cusp of a house or a sign, which is the same thing in Vedic astrology. That is very difficult. It makes the planet generally a sign of weakness. Now, what overcomes that is when a planet's in Vargotama, which means it's in the same sign in the up here in the Rashi chart, is also down here in the Navamsha. Go away. So, so for him, it is not. So, however, he's had an extremely successful career. And so what we do is we take a look at the 10th house here. And, we could actually go to his Navamsa chart, go away. Well, okay. So if you take a look at his Navamsa chart and you take a look at the 10th house, the sun is actually in the, oh, let's see, it's in like the sign of Libra, which is debilitated, but the south node of the moon is there. So that's where a lot of the success came from. Now, looking at his dasha period, he's in his Jupiter dasha in his first house. So yeah, it's in the sign of Scorpio. So usually when people are in their Jupiter dasha and Jupiter's conjunct K2, that's a sign of somebody that wants to go into isolation or spiritual development, especially here too. If you're looking here in 2016, I probably could roll that out a little bit more. I'm surprised that he's still out touring. He should really be working on his own spiritual development or just going ahead and retiring. So, all right, everybody, thanks again for joining me for Astrology in the News. If you look down there, all the social media links are down there. And if you want to book a consultation with me, go to novsyoga.com. Click on book a consultation. A list of all my awesome services are there. Hey, an hour consultation is only $80, man. And if you take a look at other astrologers, that's pretty damn cheap. And I want you to know that it's not only oh well, look, my stream is unhealthy. Well, anyway, I will explain that some more later. But if you're catching this on the replay, what was I going to say? Basically, it's an hour for an hour, 80 for an hour long consultation. And that consultation is with me over the phone. It's recorded and you get a copy of that recording. And you're allowed to ask pretty much whatever questions you want. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. And hopefully I will see you tomorrow.